in St. Louis, Missouri. We're about to take a tour of the fabulous Fox Theater. We saw a show here the other night. It was really good. We saw MJ the Musical, Michael Jackson show. If it comes to your city, definitely go see it. All right, welcome into Fox Theater. Going to start our tour here in just a few minutes.
Hey Greg, how are you today?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Good. Happy, what Saturday it is? Happy Saturday.
Thank you very much.
You've been immortalized.
This old box office here.
Good morning, how are you guys?
So cool.
Good, good. Come right down.
We can go on into the lobby.
Nice. Fabulous Fox in St. Louis. Do they still use these old box offices?
Well, this is the original box office. But because the theater, when it first opened, sat 5,000 people,
Yeah.
and everybody bought their ticket that moment,
Okay.
they had to sometimes, I'll show you, they had to
cool.
sometimes use more than one. You'll see this one has 2 stations, so 2 people could sit in here and issue tickets.
Yeah.
But many times that wasn't enough, so they would use these 2 as well.
Right. Okay. Wow. They just got that classic old-timey look.
Yes, they do.
Man, it's beautiful in here. And walking into the lobby, wow, look at this. God. This is incredible. It's so big you just can't get it all in the frame. Wow. Go up a little bit higher. And give you a shot of the ceiling. Amazing. Just met our tour guide. I think you said his name is Greg. Wow, just beautiful in here. It's amazing. Back up and get a shot of this.
Oh, MJ. MJ, yeah. We're gonna have water for elements. We're gonna have. Yeah, so I think we have the size.
Beautiful. The Fox Theater in Atlanta, Georgia is really beautiful also.
Good morning, everyone. As Elise said, my name is Greg. I'm going to be your tour guide today. In case I may have missed it if Elise said it, please feel free to take however many videos and pictures, whatever you want, and post them on social media because we love to see people here on the tour and telling other people about it.
Yeah, great advertising for us. Not of the stage, however. That's their property, production's property. Thanks, guys.
Okay. And the other thing is, obviously, as we walk around, all kinds of questions will arise, okay? I will stop every now and then and say, does anyone have a question? But if I miss you, if I don't see that you have a puzzled look on your face or something, just kind of wave or whatever. Now, I do believe I have a particularly loud projecting voice. So I don't think anybody will have trouble hearing me, but if there is a problem, just let me know. Okay? Now, as Lee said, we're going to go all over the theater today. Obviously, because there is a show on the stage, we can't go onto the stage or back there because the performers are back there. Okay? But we're going to go everywhere else, including we're going to have an organ recital in a little bit up here at the lobby organ, and we'll go up there about 10:30 to do that. Now, obviously, when you first walk into the Fabulous Fox Theater, it's like, what? This is unlike any theater I have ever seen. It is commonly known as what is called a movie palace. And the movie palaces were primarily built in the 1920s. Now, I'll talk a little bit more about that when we go inside, but I'm going to give you a few fun facts with which you can amaze your friends when you bring them here. These gigantic orange columns that you see on both sides, I assure you they are not holding up the building. They are actually hollow and made of plaster. They are not marble. And you'll say, but they look like marble. Using a very clever painting process called scagliola, after they were created and painted, an artist from Italy came in here using turkey feathers and special paints to create that marbly look. Okay? These little lights that you see about a third of the way up, the reason I know the pillars are hollow is there is a single light that hangs down all the way from up there, down the column to light those up from the inside. Okay? Here's a few more fun facts and then we're gonna move on. Look right above you. This gigantic mural that is on the ceiling, it is really not on the ceiling. It is one gigantic piece of stiffened canvas that the mural was painted down here at ground level and then lifted up there and stretched across that opening just like you would stretch a painting onto a frame. Okay? All right. This lobby is also the tallest theater lobby in the United States at 5 stories tall. Okay? This tapestry you see right here is original to the theater. When that window was built, and if you didn't take time before you came in to look at the front of the building, you want to, okay? They put that window in there and immediately realized the sun was gonna beat in that window and heat this lobby up. So they had this tapestry specially created. It hung there for about 25 years, and then they took it down and just painted the window black. Nobody knew where it was for quite a while, and then they found it rolled up in a box under the stage, and we had it restored, rejeweled, cleaned, and hung back up there. Here's the last thing I'm going to tell you before we move on. You'll see this very unique carpet design here in the theater. It is a duplicate of the original design that was here in the theater. As you walk around, obviously you can see the elephants on the carpet. As you walk around, one of the things you'll notice is that the elephants are always pointing toward the center of the stage, okay? Can you imagine being the poor carpet layer who had to keep turning that carpet to make that happen? Anyway, so we're going to start out in the main floor of the theater first, then we're going to do the organ recital, and then we're going to just start moving around. Okay? Were there questions before we move? All right, come with me, please. And if you want to take a seat anywhere here, like in the first 4 rows, that would be great. Doesn't matter where, as long as you can see me and hear me. All right. Now, as I mentioned, this is the main floor of the theater, seating 2,300 people. Now, obviously, when you walk in and you just see the ornateness and the beauty of this theater, you have to wonder, how did such a place ever get built in the first place, and how does it even still exist today? Okay? The Fabulous Fox Theater was built in 1927 and 28. It took, if you can believe this, only 18 months to build it, and they had to tear down an old church first before starting on it, and they got it completely done in 18 months so that it could open in January 1929. Now, how did it come to be? Well, if you know anything about the 1920s, one of the things that you know is there was a lot of money flying around, okay? Partly from illegal bootlegging, okay? But also the stock market had just skyrocketed and movies were taking off like there was no tomorrow. So people had a lot of money. And the reason it was called the Roaring Twenties was people were out to have a good time. And as part of that, if they had money, they wanted to show it off. All right? So there was indeed a gentleman by the name of William S. Fox, after whom the theater is named. Okay? He had started out as an immigrant. I'm sorry? Oh, I thought you had a question. Okay. Started out as an immigrant in New York, bought one movie theater, got it rolling, bought another, and by the mid-1920s, he owned 800 movie theaters in the United States. Not only did he own 800 movie theaters, he is also the gentleman who founded the studio we now call 20th Century Fox. Okay? After which the Fox Network is also named. Okay? He also owned a portion of the copyright that was used to print sound directly onto films. Okay? So needless to say, he was making money hand over fist. But the one thing he didn't have was a truly spectacular movie theater. Okay? He was very envious of people like Louis B. Mayer and Frederick Loewe and a few others who did. And so he wanted to build the most spectacular movie theater that could be built. Okay? Most of the theaters he owned were what were back then called neighborhood theaters. And it's kind of hard to imagine now, but you got to remember that most people didn't own cars in the late 1920s. So they walked to the local movie theater. So every neighborhood had its own movie theater that showed one film. There was no going to the multiplex and figuring out what you wanted to see. Anyway, he decided he wanted to build a spectacular theater. He contacted an architect by the name of Crane, Howard Crane, and Crane had developed a reputation of building symphony halls and opera houses. And he was contacted by Fox and given pretty much just two instructions. I want the most spectacular movie theater that's ever been done. It can't look like any other movie theater. And there can't be any blank wall space. All right. So Crane took to work. And over the next few years, they spent $6.5 million to build the Fabulous Fox Theater. Okay, now as Elise mentioned, being the penny pincher that Fox was, he decided to use the same blueprints twice, building one theater here and one in Detroit, and they were being built simultaneously. But the coming up with a special look was the biggest challenge. And that was, most of the movie palaces that were built in the 1920s had a theme. I'm sure some of you have heard of Grauman's Chinese Theater out in California. That's where everybody puts their handprints and footprints and signs the cement. But there are others. How many of you are from this area? Okay, I just want, if I made a reference to something in the area, I didn't want to confuse everybody. Okay, you may not know that what is now Powell Hall was originally also a movie theater. It was the St. Louis Theater, and it was designed, still to this day, to look like the Palace of Versailles in France. So all of the big palaces had a theme. Well, Fox and Crane kicked all kinds of ideas around, and finally they came up with what they called Siamese Byzantine. Now, I assure you, there is no such architectural structure or theme, okay? But what they essentially did was they took motifs and ideas and themes ranging all the way from Egypt all the way to what is now Indonesia, okay? Now, I would love to tell you that the Fabulous Fox is culturally or historically accurate. It is not. It is a complete free-for-all. In other words, if Crane and Fox thought it looked cool, they did it. And they put different themes next to each other that had no connection whatsoever, but they thought it looked cool. Okay, so they finally came up with the plan, started building in mid-1927, and as I said, it took 18 months to build, and they opened it as a movie theater in January of 1929. Now, I often tell people on tours that the Fabulous Fox Theater has got to be the unluckiest theater in the world, because they built this spectacular place on the premise that people with lots of money, or even people with a little extra, would come here to enjoy the luxury that was not present in neighborhood theaters. Unfortunately, 8.5 months after the Fox opened, something terrible happened. The stock market crashed. And not long after that, the banks failed, and the United States was thrown into a 10-year depression, which pretty much didn't end until the war. So now, here they are with this luxurious movie theater that cost a little more. When you went to the movies back then, it was about 20 cents, but it might be 50 here, okay? Well, the problem was when people were counting money, they didn't necessarily want to come here when they could see the same movie in a small movie theater a couple weeks later. But they plowed through, doing the best they can. Came World War II, and after World War II, another not ideal thing happened. And that was that when the soldiers returned from serving overseas, the government offered them inexpensive land and housing loans, okay? But unfortunately, here in St. Louis, there was no land available. So all of the land that was offered was out west, okay? Thus creating suburbs like Clayton, Brentwood, Kirkwood, etc. And so people started moving further west. The population of St. Louis dropped from 800,000 when the Fox was first built to 250,000 in 1950. So there, 2/3 of your population isn't going to come all the way back down here to see a movie when they can see one out in the county. All right? But the Fox continued to plug on and lasted unbelievably all the way to 1978. But by then, almost 50 years after it opened, the owners just threw up their hands and said, we can't make it financially. Now, I don't know what it costs to run this place by any stretch of the imagination, but all of us can imagine just what the utility bill alone must be in here, okay? So in 1978, the theater just boarded up and sat empty for 3 years. Now, those of you who are from here may remember that was not the only theater in that situation. Downtown was another very large movie palace called the Ambassador. Okay, and it had sat empty for quite a while. So there was talk about tearing them down. And people went, oh, they would never tear down such a spectacular place. Well, they tore down the Ambassador and made it a parking lot. So the Fox sat here, and in 1981, a gentleman by the name of Leon Strauss and his wife Mary came here. Leon was a real estate developer. He mostly worked out further west, out in the Central West End. And what he would do is he would buy abandoned buildings or abandoned property, fix it up, sell it high. Okay? So he wanted to buy the building next door, which is called the Humboldt Building. And they came in to look at it, he and his wife. And while they were here, the guy showing it to him said, "Hey, would you like to see the fox?" Well, Mrs. Strauss had grown up here, so she wanted to see it. So the guy brought him in here. It was nasty. Okay? It had sat boarded up, more or less, without any kind of heating or air conditioning for 3 years. They came in here, it was the middle of January. They were all bundled up because there was very little heat in here. One light bulb worked, according to Mrs. Strauss. They came in, mold and mildew was everywhere. Birds and bats were flying around in the ceiling. Portions of the ceiling had crashed down into the theater. As they were walking out, the guy showing it to him goes, "Yeah, you know, it's a beautiful place, but they're probably going to tear it down." Mrs. Strauss went nuts, and she begged her husband to buy it. And he said, "Mary, why would I want to buy a movie theater that went out of business?" She wouldn't drop it. She bugged him and bugged him for a few months. And finally, in April of '81, he finally broke down. And he said, "Fine, I'll find investors to buy it, but you're going to have to run it." And she said, "Fine. All right." Mrs. Strauss is still here. Okay? She's in her 80s now. She is the chairman of the board, the primary stockholder. There are 2 other ladies who are the other stockholders, who are descendants of the original investors. And those 3 own the Fox. Obviously, they're not making day-to-day decisions. They pay people to do those kind of things. But if they want to do something, we're doing it. And if they don't want to do something, we're not doing it. Okay? I've been talking and talking. Questions? Yes.
Do you have like the plans, the architecture from the original? Does somebody have those documented?
Sort of. Many, many, many of the early records are gone. You know, when the theater closed, things just happened. Yes, we have the original blueprints, okay? Every now and then online, I'll see somebody publish something that they found in their attic that was in a construction company thing and whatever. So yes, we have the blueprints. However, much of it we had to learn on the fly because we just simply didn't have the documents that told us about things. And for that matter, much of the history there was no record of. If you asked me how many people came to a movie here in 1950, couldn't tell you because there are no records from that time. Okay, other questions? Yes.
So just so I can kind of visualize this, was it like the layout and everything was exactly like this when it was built? Or like in terms of the seating and the balconies and everything?
That is a very good question. And here is the answer as simply as I can give it. Okay. Mrs. Strauss said she wanted to restore the theater back to the way it looked when it opened. And that was the driving force, okay, behind the theater. It looks, for the most part, exactly as it did in 1929. A few exceptions. The sound booth that you see right back here didn't exist. Okay, we had to create that to do Broadway shows. The 2 concession stands you may have seen when you walked in, they didn't exist either. So they had to be created. But other than that, with one exception that I'll tell you when we go upstairs, the theater looks exactly the way it did in 1929. Okay, other questions? Yes?
This is just me probably, but what is that?
What is?
In the cove up there?
Up here?
Yes.
We'll get a better look when we go at it when we look at it upstairs, but I'll tell you what it is. It's a harpsichord.
Okay.
I have another question. What is the part that's hanging? Yeah.
That? Okay. We'll get a better look when we go at it upstairs. We joke about that we call that the incense burner. Now, I assure you, we have never burned incense here. Okay? But it was designed to fit in the Siamese Byzantine theme. Okay? Okay, and that's telling me we need to move. But let me just finish the thought. Okay. So when the theater was first built, that's where they hid the PA system speakers. Okay. Because remember, the theater is so big, it took a long time to sell all the tickets and get it. People would line up down the street and around the corner, whatever. So it took a long time to get everybody in here. So by the time it was ready to start the movie, we had to tell people it was time to stop hobnobbing and take your seat, and that is how they did it. We obviously have a much more sophisticated system than that now, but we can't bear to part with it. So it's still up there. Sometimes when you come here, it's not there. And the reason for that is every now and then when we get a show, the rigging that is required for the show gets in the way of it. And so we have to remove it. The best example I can tell you, Phantom of the Opera. Because the chandelier swings right there. And so it's not always there. When Peter Pan was here, the rigging that gave the flying system got in the way. When Miss Saigon is here, if you've ever seen that, the helicopter comes down from the ceiling, it gets in the way. So we have to remove it. But it's still here just because we like it. Okay, any other questions? Okay, here's what we're going to do next. We're going to go upstairs to the lobby organ, and a gentleman from the St. Louis Theater Organ Society is going to give us a little demo of how movie organs worked at that time. We're going to walk up 2 flights of stairs. Is everybody okay with that? All right, come with me.
I'm going to make a volume adjustment. He's got a really loud voice.
All right, come on in, everybody.
I may have missed it, but what is the total amount of people that can fit?
There are 24 boxes. Each box holds
Oh, I mean
8
the
people.
whole theater.
Oh, in the whole theater, about 4,300.
Wow, okay.
All right, everybody. This is the dining area where they can come into. There is a second one. I'll show you where it is, but we won't go into it. But I want to show you one other funny thing that it's just a weird quirk. All of this trim and stuff that you see here is all made of plaster. Okay? And that was primarily done, 1, so that it could easily be duplicated, and 2, back in the 20s, it was considered a smart fireproofing method. Okay? Now, so most of these things, the molds were created by the architect Crane and his company. They had 12 railroad cars of different molds that had to be created. They created where the parking lot is now. They set up shop out there, created all the molds, and then brought them in, mounted them to the wall, and then painted them. Okay? Now, because to keep it all straight of what went where and which mold was which, all of the molds were numbered. Okay? So they knew what to do. When they brought it in, the painters were supposed to sand the number out, okay, and paint over it. But sometimes they forgot. So it's sort of like a treasure hunt here in the Fabulous Fox. In this case, right there, on both of them, they forgot to sand out the number. But as you walk around, you might see that every now and then. All right, then follow me. That's the other dining area where people go. Originally, it was a retail shop when the theater was first built. We're going to walk back here in a second. I just don't want to lose people. All right, let's come right back here. I want to show you something really cool. Cloisonne elephants. And any of you who do craft work know what that is. It's essentially a fancy paper mache. Okay, but instead of using newspapers and plaster, they use a more sophisticated plaster and then crushed glass and special oil paints. Please be careful on them, they're very fragile. They are as near as anyone, we've had restorers in here and historians in here. When the Fox was being built, Mr. Fox had a wife, okay, and she liked to dabble in some of the decorations, okay? Her name was Eve Leo Fox. And Eve Leo, as the theater was being built, went all over art places and whatever, looking for cool things to just put in the theater. These came from Germany initially. After World War I, Kaiser Wilhelm was forced to pay reparations to the United States for war damages. He owned these, okay, in Germany, and had to give them up. And Mrs. Fox bought them, okay, and brought them here. Only years later did we discover that the technique that is used to create all of this is about 1,000 years old, okay? And it is speculated that these were done in approximately the 1600s.
Oh my gosh.
Okay? So originally, they sat downstairs in the lobby, but it made everybody a nervous wreck. So we moved them up here, okay, for people to see. Okay? I just like to show them because I think they're cool. All right? Now, I told you we could look at one of the boxes. Let's do that now.
He was talking about the elephants.
Oops. Now, as you can see, most people actually don't even see this area in the theater when they come here because it barely sticks out. Above us is the balcony. So this is the floor of the balcony above us, and the main floor is below us. And a lot of people don't even notice necessarily this ridge. But, as I said, these seats are mostly owned by businesses and corporations who lease them on a 3-year basis. They rent either 4 or 8 seats, and they are nice. The seats are nice, and not only are the seats nice, you'll wonder why there are tables in here, because every box has a concierge, okay, who stands at the back, and you say, I feel like a pizza, and they run and get it. So that's a really cool thing. Okay, questions? We all good? Okay, now here's the thing. We're on the 2nd floor. I'd love to take you up to the 5th floor because it's a grand view, okay? But it is 3 floors of stairs. Is everybody okay? If not, I'll take you up in the elevator. Okay.
The youngest wants the elevator.
It's fine. We can do the elevator. I'll just break it into 2 groups. So come with me, please. Take however many pictures you want. This is quite a view from up here. We're on the 5th floor of the Fabulous Fox Theater. The Fox is 9 stories high, but there is seating from floor 1 to floor 5.
So there's how many floors under?
There's really 2
Okay.
in the basement.
And then,
Above this floor, there are 4 more.
really?
Uh-huh.
That was gonna be one of my questions, is how tall is the ceiling from the ground?
I knew I got asked that once before. It's 153 feet, if I remember correctly.
Wow.
So, when we were here for Family Opera, they had their chandelier here.
In front of that one.
Yeah. And that one was different because instead of swinging down to the stage,
It just dropped. And that was the way they do it now.
Okay.
Because the concern in some theaters is that swinging motion
Right.
can get out of control.
Oh.
All right, folks, when you're ready, we're going to come down 1 floor. And just have a seat right in here. Anywhere is fine.
How do you change the light bulbs in that chandelier?
I'll tell you in a minute.
Okay.
That's the question we had the other night.
Yeah.
Oops, excuse me. Folks, just take a seat anywhere in here is fine as long as you can hear me and see me. so many times when people come here and they're seated on the main floor, they don't even see how fantastic the ceiling is because it's partially blocked by the balcony. Okay, all right, as I said, we came in on the 5th floor. We're currently seated on the 4th floor, what we call middle balcony. So just if you're trying to place it in your mind for tickets, where we're seated is middle balcony. This is lower balcony. The seats in front of that rail are the mezzanine. Up there behind the gold railing is upper balcony. The balcony itself seats a little more, about 2,100 people. Again, being one of the largest, it is the largest clear span balcony in the United States. Okay? Now, but when people come here, one of the things they don't realize is that Mr. Crane had a brainstorm about the way he wanted to have the theater look. And I'm going to show it to you. When I show it to you, it will make sense. His idea was to make the interior of the theater look like an Arabian tent. This is the sun, the sky. 24 spears going all the way around are the tent poles, if you will, holding it up. You see this brown area that looks like fabric? That's because it is fabric. That is not painted on there. That is fabric that was brought up there and then stretched from here to here and here to here. The tassels that go all the way around, though, are actually made of plaster. The small ones are 1.5 feet tall. The longer ones are 2.5 feet tall. Now, obviously, when we come up here, the first thing everybody wants to ask about is this giant chandelier hanging here. Okay? It is original to the theater. Unbelievably, it weighs 5,000 pounds. You'll see the cables that run up here above it. One of them is electrical. The rest of them are steel cables attached to a giant winch up on the roof of the Fox, okay, that holds it in position. Now, the obvious question is, it has 150 light bulbs inside it. How do they change them? Never was our maintenance crew so thankful as the day LED bulbs became the norm. Because originally, they would have to change them about every 6 months. Now we only do it about every 4 years, okay? How do we do it? When it comes time, they go up on the roof, turn on the winch, and very slowly, it lowers it all the way down to right there. Can everybody see where I'm pointing? All right, this brass part right here then drops down, and they put a ladder up into it, a step ladder up into it, and then there's a little bit of steel work inside where they can climb in and sit and do the work, whatever. Needless to say, only specialized people do it, okay? Then after we get it done, they turn the winch back on and it pulls it all the way back up to its normal position, okay? Sometimes when I have school groups here, they go, what would happen if it fell? Nothing good. But it's been hanging there for almost 100 years, so I don't think there's any concern about that. Questions before I go on? Yes?
So I want to know about like the cleaning routine of all these intricate.
Okay. The question was, how do they keep all of this clean? It's a two-pronged process, if you will. One, we have a very sophisticated air system in here with a huge amount of filters. Now, that was done for two reasons. One, this place is impossible to dust, okay? And two, it helps the performers on stage, that there's less pollen, less dust, whatever, floating around in the air in here. But that only can do good up to a certain point, okay? We have an on-staff maintenance crew. I think it currently has 8 or 9 people who do nothing but work to keep the theater clean, okay? Now, when you get into this intricate work like this, the problem is, how do you dust that? Well, luckily we don't have to do it very often. The railings have to be done more often, etc. But because most of the stuff is vertical, it doesn't collect dust terrible. And because we control the moisture in here, we don't really get mold and mildew. But the way they do it is they take a 3x3 piece of, I'm trying to think of the name of it, Japanese paper, okay? And they put a very light detergent and water, and they press it onto it, okay? Leave it there for just a minute or two, and then pull it back off, okay? And that pulls the dirt out of the crevices and everything. Needless to say, that is a slow, laborious process, okay? And luckily, we just don't have to do it very often, okay? The hardest thing to keep clean here is the carpet. The Fox is covered by 7,000 square yards of carpet, okay? But one of the things you'll rarely see here is a Hoover or whatever. Unbelievably, back in 1927 and 28, Crane had the foresight to build the vacuum into the walls. Even though today we think of that as a modern convenience, he installed it back in 1929. And every time we walk around, you'll see little spigots. And that's where they just literally just plug in, and the giant vacuum is way down in the basement, and that's how they keep the carpets clean. The carpet, despite all the traffic here, because it's a high quality carpet manufactured by Mohawk, has to be changed about every 20 years. And in fact, we're going to do it this summer. We're going to make a complete change. Okay?
What are you going to do with the remnants?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't, okay, yes. In the past, they have just thrown them away. Okay? I haven't heard any plan of them doing something special with them, but of course, they could be. They don't need to consult with me on stuff like that. Well, it is, you know, and it's just like when they've done some brick changes and whatever, they've actually sold the bricks to people. It's not unheard of. But how many people would want an old piece of carpet? I don't know.
I'll take it.
Okay, were there other questions? Okay, let me just show you a few other things. Okay, you'll see this brown area that goes all the way around. That is a maintenance walkway, about 2 feet wide. Okay, why is it there? Because if you've ever been to the Fox, it's never this bright. Okay, it's always much dimmer. And the reason is these bright white lights up here are not normally on. Okay, they're only on for cleaning and for tours, so we can show people things. They are not normally on because all of the lighting in the interior behind each of these masks that go all the way around is a long tubular light. Originally they were fluorescent, now they're LED. Okay, that light shines up onto the ceiling and then back down into the theater. That, along with the chandelier, is the only lighting you will see in here. Okay, obviously we need a walkway to be able to get up to those lights, and that's what that does. You'll also notice directly behind us is the old projection booth. It's on the 6th floor. Okay, the old projectors are still there. We don't use them. Okay, primarily because they were designed to show a film, and nobody shows films anymore. It's all digital. Okay, but we keep them up there just because they were part of the theater. We do still use that area though. Many times for shows they want to put spotlights up there, and they will go up there and run spotlights from up there. So the projection booth is on the 6th floor. The walkway is on the 7th. Above this ceiling there is, for lack of a better word, a crawl space, okay, where if they have to get out there to change like this light, okay, is how they get to it. And then on the 9th floor is the winch and some other mechanical stuff on the top of the Fox. Okay? Any other questions? Yes?
How tall is the Fox Theater?
How tall is the Fox Theater? It is 9 stories tall. Okay? Now, I don't know exactly what the story level is because it ranges quite a bit. And earlier I said an incorrect number and I didn't mean to. Okay? The distance from up there to the main floor is 135 feet. I don't know what I said earlier, but 135 is correct. So you figure the theater is taller than that. Okay? Last thing I want to show you real quick. Earlier there was a question about the mighty Wurlitzer, and where is it? It's right there. It's covered right now because there's an orchestra in the orchestra pit. Okay? But that's where it is, and it's on a lift. So when we want to use it, it lifts up here so everybody can see it and we can play it. I'm sorry, I'm in your way. I didn't mean to be. It's right there.
But you said if we were to come and do this tour, like when there's not a production here.
They will actually play it and lift it up. That is correct. The pipes, just like on the on the other organ, ours are up here. They're behind this wall and behind this wall. 2,200 pipes. Okay? Anything else? All right, come with me. Here, let's go down this way
Gotta
instead.
go down. All right, well, that's going to do it for the tour from the Fox Theater in St. Louis. Really good time, a lot of information. Greg did a great job. So if you're ever in St. Louis, definitely see a show here. As you can see from the video, it's just truly spectacular in there. So yeah, definitely come check out a show here. Do the tour if you have the time. And maybe if you're here and you get to see the tour, maybe there's not a production going on because we couldn't go backstage today. But anyway, that's going to do it from the Fox Theater in St. Louis, Missouri. And we'll see you on the next video. Have a great day.